Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about children that are difficult, transforming children that are difficult. How many of you have children who misbehave? Children that are difficult, children that do not listen, children that disrespect. Maybe they embarrass you when you're in public. They fight, they yell, they tantrum. They don't want to do their schoolwork. They lack discipline. They have emotional issues. Does every family have one of those children? I don't know, but I did. And today I'm going to share with you how I transformed one of my most difficult children, who is now one of my nicest children by far. And I'm not going to claim that I have all the answers, and I'm not going to claim that what I did is going to work with you. But I wanted to share this with you because I know that a lot of what I'm going to share today can help so many people. So let's talk about this. So one of my children, I'm not going to say who it is because I want to preserve their privacy. When I brought one of my babies home, she became one of my most difficult children. She completely regressed, didn't want to use the potty anymore. And she became like a little monster type of child where she would mistreat her siblings. She would yell, she would tantrum and cry for hours. And nothing that I did would soothe this child. I was at a loss. I was already going through a hard time having a newborn, and then having to deal with this was really breaking me. And it brought me to a really dark corner. I got to a point where I didn't want to go out anymore because this child would literally embarrass me in public with the way that she behaved, with the way that she treated other people. And I really got to a point where I thought I need to maybe talk to my pediatrician. Maybe there's something wrong with this child. Maybe there's more. Maybe this child has some type of, other type of issue that needs to be resolved. So I did. I talked to my pediatrician and she said, give us some time. There's a new baby in the home. And time passed and this child just kept getting worse. And I tried so many different things and nothing worked. And I got to a point where I asked God, what can I do? God, help me with this child. And then I started looking within and I started seeing like the darkness in me that was reflecting on her and how she was a reflection of me in so many different ways. And so before I go into that, I want to go ahead and first establish a main thing that you need to do with difficult children. The number one thing that you need to establish with difficult children is they need to have boundaries. So difficult children need to have consequences for their misbehavior. That is number one. In fact, if you don't do this, then nothing else is going to work. So your children need to have consequences for their behavior. And what do I mean by this? If a child, for example, is throwing blocks and you ask them to stop and they don't stop and they continuously throw the blocks and make a mess everywhere and they're not listening, you need to give them a consequence. And I usually try to attach the consequence, have the consequence be something that's related to what they're doing. So if they're throwing blocks, I take the blocks away. If they are banging a toy and I tell them to stop, then I take the toy away if they don't stop. If they're playing with food on the table, with water on the table, and they're not stopping when I ask them to stop, then that water, that food goes away for a little bit. So there's always a consequence with the child's behavior. There needs to be consequences, because if there's not, then your words will not have meaning to that child and they will not respect you. If you're playing in a park and the child is misbehaving and you keep telling the child, if you keep doing that, we're going to go home, you need to follow through and you need to go home. If a child is in a play date and they're misbehaving, you need to take that child and you need to go home, or pull that child and have them sit next to you for a little bit. There needs to be consequences for the children's behavior. Let me give you another example. My children love sculpting, and I have been telling them, when you're done sculpting, you need to put your things away when you're done. And they go ahead and they sculpt, and they leave all their mess on the table. And here I will be picking every little piece of clay off the floor on my knees and picking everything up, making it all neat. But I wasn't teaching my children anything by doing that. So what did I do? The next time that they sculpted, I told them again, please pick up your things when you're done sculpting. And again, they went ahead and sculpted. They left all their mess. So what did I say? Because you didn't pick up all of your things after you sculpted, there will not be any more sculpting for the next few days. And that was a big deal for them because they love sculpting and they sculpt every day, and they spend hours doing this stuff, and they have projects that they're doing at the moment. At that moment, they were doing projects that they wanted to finish and that they wanted to glaze and that they wanted to do things with. And guess what? They didn't get to do it. And they were upset. And they were hurt about that. And that's okay, because that's a consequence. In life, there's always going to be consequences. Even when you're an adult, when you're in college, there's going to be consequences if you don't hand in that paper. There's going to be consequences if you run over that red light. There's consequences in life, and this is what you want to teach your children. So what had happened was that after that, every time after they sculpt, everything is put back into the little basket that I've assigned for, and it's never a problem anymore. But that is because I assigned the consequence to that behavior. There needs to be a consequence. The consequence does not need to be harsh. In fact, it shouldn't be harsh. You shouldn't punish a child for a whole month. You're grounded for a whole month, or I'm going to take the TV for a whole week. It's just you don't want to make it too harsh, because then it's unfair, number one, and you're going to break the bond. And number two, they will resent you. You don't want that. You want to make the consequence something that is something reasonable that you can follow through with, and that is not going to completely take that child off course, So I have a video that I made more on how to get children to listen to you, and how the things that I use, and one of my favorite books. I'm going to link it below, the video and also the book, because I don't want this video just to be about boundaries. So once you have established that there's always going to be consequences for your bad behavior, there's boundaries that you cannot break. There is discipline in that home. The next step, and this is the next step that I needed for the child that I was having issues with, because I had the consequences down. And this is the second step. It was bonding with that child, bonding with your children. It is very, very important that you bond with your children, that you talk to your children throughout the day, that you do things together, whether it's board games, whether it's playing catch outside, playing with dolls, hiking, baking together. We do drawing tutorials together from YouTube. We do it together. We all have our little journals. We like sculpting together. Since my kids love riding bikes, I recently got one of those tandem bike attachments, and we ride together, and it's really a bonding experience for us. There's so many things you can do with your children. I really admire seeing people that take the time to bond with their children. When I lived in a town a few years ago, I lived in an Indian community, and I saw how they spent time walking with their children every day in the afternoons. They all went together for walks as families, and I really thought that was beautiful. I see some of my neighbors, they play catch with their kids, they go walking with their kids. They are people that spend time with their children. That's truly, truly valuable. And I encourage you to spend time with your children every day, bonding. And I know we all have our schedules, but even if it's just having a conversation, children also enjoy for you to sit down and watch what they're watching. They love that. They love that. Even if you sit down and watch your favorite cartoons with them, they love that. That's bonding as well. So very important to bond with the children. So that's what I did with this child. I actually set out a timer every day for 20 minutes. And I know it seems like a little, oh, that's all you spend with that child. Well, those 20 minutes was life-changing for that child. For those 20 minutes, I would have that child on my lap, and I would sing to her, and I would read to her, just her individual attention. I would play on the floor with her little dolls. Anything that she wanted to play with, I spent that time just with her. I also use something called play therapy I got a lot of information from this book, and I'm going to link it below. This really good book about play therapy. Basically, it's where you act out a problem that the child is going through play. So, for example, like if that child was dealing with tantrums, I would be a little figurine and was having a tantrum, and she would solve that as an adult. Like she would be the adult parent solving that little child that's having a tantrum. So we would act things out within the play. We would act things out that she was already dealing with. And that way she was able to deal with those emotions through play. And I was able to teach her through play how this little figurine should behave and how things should be. And it wasn't like me just talking down to her. It was we're playing. And it was really fun that way. So we did a lot of that. Again, we did a lot of bonding together. I would have this child next to me. I would take her, involve her in everything. I started involving her, helping me take the baby a bath. When I was washing the dishes, she would be there. I would put her little seat there, and she would be washing the dishes with me. And so she became my little buddy. I brought her back to my bed, and she slept next to me. I started just filling this child up with so much love. Another thing that I did was that 3 times a day, I would get down to her level and I would tell her, I love you. I really, really love you. You're special. And I would tell her good things about her. It's really important that you tell your children good things, that they hear good things about themselves. So when you see a child do something good, bring it up. I liked how you were sharing with your sister. I like how you're playing with your sister. I like how you picked up your dish after you finished eating. Oh, I love that picture that you drew. I love those eyes you drew. So just bring those things and that the child is doing that are good. Don't focus on the bad. Don't constantly tell your children bad things. Don't put labels on them. They're lazy. They don't have good attention span. They don't want to do their work. They're not smart. They have an attitude. When you place labels on children, or they're mean, or whatever it is, when you place a label on that child, they're going to embody that. They're going to become that even more so. So you don't want to focus on negativity. You want to focus on positive reinforcement. I know you probably have heard of it, and it's very, very powerful to focus on the good things that child has and constantly tell them about the good things. Focus on the good things and they'll do more of it. It's very important that you watch the way that you speak to your children. How are you speaking to them? Are you speaking to them with a condescending tone? Are you shaming them? Are you name calling? Are you bullying them? Are you talking to them with respect? You want to talk to your children as if you would talk to a dear friend, as if you would talk to Jesus himself. You want to talk to children with love and respect. That doesn't mean that you're not going to enforce your boundaries, because you can be firm, but you can still be sweet in your tone and you can still be respectful. So when I talk about respect, you want to respect children. For example, let's say a child is watching something. You don't want to just be like, okay, I'm turning it off. We're moving on to the next thing. Have respect. Give the child a heads up. We're moving on to doing this. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be turning off the television. Or in the next 10 minutes, we're going to be leaving the park. Also, if a child is eating something, don't just go and take their food and start eating it. Ask them, can I have a little bit of that? Just watch how you treat that child, because the way that you treat them is the way that they're going to treat you and the way that they're going to treat others around them. With the more respect and the more love that you treat them, that is the way that they're going to be with you. So I had to face that. I needed to change a lot of things within myself so that I saw change in my children. So I changed the way that I spoke to my children. My tone of voice changed. And I started seeing their tone of voice change. And I couldn't believe how sweet they sounded to me and how sweet this child was becoming. And it was because I changed me first. Children are a reflection of us. Children are a mirror of us. So if we want to change them, the first thing that we need to do is we need to change ourselves. We need to change ourselves. The way that you speak to your children matters. It matters, and it's very, very important. Let's talk a little bit about yelling and hitting, and I'm going to address this very shortly in my video because I feel that it needs to be addressed. Yelling and hitting is violence, no matter what way you put it. There's nothing positive about it. Yelling is a violent behavior. Hitting is a violent behavior. And when you do these things, you're teaching your child to settle their differences with violence. You're teaching your child violence. You're teaching them to be violent. And another thing that you're doing is you're breaking the bond between you and that child, which is one of the worst things that you can do. Because when you have a bond with your children, you have more influence over them. When you have a bond with your children, they're more likely to respect you, to listen to you, to want to cooperate, to want to follow your instructions because they trust you and they love you and they want to please you. But when you yell, when you hate, when you shame, when you name call, you're breaking that bond with that child. And that is one of the worst things that you can do. Sooner or later, if you hit and yell, that child is going to be doing the same thing that you do. And they're going to be doing it to their friends, to strangers. They're going to be doing it to you. So don't ever resort to those things. If you are one of those people, then you need to go away from that. And if you feel that you have to get help, then get help. The last thing that I'm going to say that helped so much with my child that needed help and with all my children was prayer. So when I would give a child a consequence, like sending them to their room or putting them on timeout, when I put them on timeout, I usually sat them next to me, almost like a time in. You're sitting right there next to me. Or I would send them to their room, whatever it is that you want to use. But afterwards, I would pray with that child. This was transforming because when I prayed with the child, I prayed to God. God, help this child not have tantrums. Help this child be kind. Help this child be able to share whatever the problem that they were put on time out for. I would pray over that child. I pray for their kindness. I pray that they may be respectful towards their siblings. I pray that this child will not do this again. And whatever that child was battling with, I prayed to the Lord to help us, to help this child with whatever they were battling with, to give them a spirit of kindness, a spirit of love. And when I prayed for them, I saw so much change, so much transformation happen. So I would pray with them and I would have them repeat after me, asking God for these qualities. I also would pray for my children at night. I would ask God to help my children with whatever they were battling with. And God has been so faithful because that child that would cry for hours, that no one could console, that child that was mean, that child that would hurt their siblings, that would hurt other people, that would not share, that child is one of my most sweetest children. And if you would meet this child, you would see that in her. And I'm not going to say that this child is perfect because we all have problems in this life. No one is perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm constantly trying to grow myself and seeing ways that I could improve myself as a mother, and my children are too. But this child has transformed so much. And whenever this child is having her issues, I go back to that bonding. I go back to that bonding again. And I ask her a lot of times, do you need a hug? Do you want mommy to give you a hug? That's one thing I ask her a lot, and she loves that. And I go and I give her a hug. And she absolutely loves that. We sometimes underestimate the need for love, the need for a hug, the need for touch, and children need that. So again, let's recap the video. So number 1 is boundaries. Without boundaries, your child will be lost. Your child will be without discipline. The second thing is bonding. Bonding. It's very important that you fill that child up with love, that you see what you are doing and how you are treating that child, and that you may change yourself so that that child could be a reflection of you, because that's what they are. They're truly a reflection of us. And number 3, prayer. Pray for your children. God is there to help us through the difficult times with our children, and He is a faithful God, and He is going to help you in your problems and your times of need. So seek to God to help you, because we cannot do it through our own strength. I'll tell you, I thought I could do it through my own strength, and I was humbled. I was very humbled. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I'm going to link below the video where I talk more about how to get your children to listen to you. I go into more in depth on steps. I'm also going to link below a video that a book that I really love that is called it's about boundaries. It's about boundaries with your strong-willed children, and it talks about how to establish boundaries and consequences with children. This has been a life-changing book for me that I always go back to. Anything else that I mentioned in the video is going to be linked below in the description box. Remember to subscribe to my channel for any more videos. Also, subscribe to my email list because this channel is really a ministry of mine, and I'm not always making videos, but every time I put out a video, I will send it to your email when I make it. So go ahead and subscribe to my email list so that I can send you the video when I make them. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to sharing so much more with you guys. If there's anything else that you guys want to share, go ahead and go over to my community tab where you can leave all your comments. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Share with others things that you have done with your difficult children that has helped. I would love to hear that, and I'm sure others would too. It was great talking with you. Until the next video. Bye-bye.